But any should I record to the cloud or my computer?
Cloud.
We're good. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Vainam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavad yutama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Hare Krishna, we're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, entitled Questions by Vidura, Text 28. Today's February 22nd, 2022. 5 twos. Interesting. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Interesting. Okay. Hare Krishna. Numerology there. All right. Kachet. Varuta. Adipati. Yadunam. Pradyumna. Aste. Sukham. Anga. Vira. Yam. Rukmini. Bhagavata. Abhilephe. Araja. Vipran. Smaram. Adisarge. Kachit Varuta Dipatir Yadunam. Pajumna Aste Sukhamanga Vira. Yamruk Mini Bhagavato Bilebe. Araji Vipram Smaramadi Sarge. Kachit Varuta Dipatir Yadunam. Pajumna Aste Sukhamanga Vira. Yamruk Mini Bhagavato Bilebe. Araji Vipran Smaramadi Sarge. Kachit Varuta Dipatir Yadunam. Pajumna Aste Sukhamanga Vira. Yamruk Mini Bhagavato Bilebe. Araji Vipran Smaramadi Sarge.
Kachit Varuta Dipatir Yadunam.
Kachit Varuta Dipatir Yadunam.
Pradyumna Aste Sukham Angavira.
Pradyumna Aste Sukham Angavira.
Rukmini Bhagavato Bilebhe.
Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebe.
Aradhya Vipran Smaramadi Sarge.
Aradhya Vipran Smaramadi Sarge.
Kachit Varuta Dipatir Yadunam.
Kachit Varuta Dipatir Yadunam.
Pradyumna Aste Sukhamanga Vira.
Pradyumna Aste Sukhamanga Vira.
Yam Rukmini Bhagavato Bhilebhe
Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebhe
Araja Vipran Smaramadi Sarge
Araja Vipran Smaramadi Sarge Kachid Maruta Dipatir Yadunam Yadu Namaste Sukamanga Viram Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebe Araja Vipran Smaram Adi Sarge
Kachid Varuta Dipatir Yadunam
Kachid Varuta Dipatir Yadunam
Pradyumna Aste Sukam Angavira
Kadyum Namaste Sukam Angavira
Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebe
Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebe Araja Vipran Smaram Adi Sarge Yachid Varuta Dipatir Yadunam Kadyum Namaste Sukam Angavira Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebe Araja Vipran Smaram Adi Sarge Kachid Varuta Dipatir Yadunam Kadyum Namaste Sukam Angavira Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebe
Araja Vipran Smaramadi Sarge
Kachid Varuta Dipatir Yadunam Kadyum Namaste Sukam Angavira Yamrukmini Bhagavato Bilebe Araja Vipran Smaram Adi Sarge. Would anyone online like to recite the verse? Okay, we'll go to the word for word. Kachit, weather. Baruta, of the military. Adipati, commander in chief. Yadunam, of the Yadus. Pradyumna, the son of Krishna named Pradyumna. Aste, is. Sukam, happy. Anga, O Uddhava. Dhira, the great warrior. Yam, whom? Rukmini, the wife of Krishna named Rukmini. Bhagavata, from the personality of Godhead. Abhilebhe, got as a prize. Araja, pleasing. Dipran, Brahmins. Smaram, Cupid, Kamadev. Adi Sarge, in his previous life. Translation. O Uddhava, please tell me, how was Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life? Rukmini bore him as her son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmins, whom she pleased. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Smara, Cupid, or Kamadev, is one of the eternal associates of Lord Krishna. Jiva Goswami has explained this very elaborately in his treatise Krishna Sandarbha. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sudrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanditam Tam Sajivam Sadekam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditam Stra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Sarasvati Deve, Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 28. Kachitavutadi papir yadunam pradyumnaste sukamanga dhira yamruk mini bhagavato bilebe arajivi pransmaram adisarge. O Deva, please tell me, how is Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life? Rukmini bore him as her son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmins whom she pleased. Hare Krishna. Okay. And so, okay, maybe for some, like, okay, who's speaking? Who's Uddhava, Pradyumna, Jiva Goswami, the Sandarbhas? Okay, all right. Now, okay, here's a term or a person, okay, we're maybe familiar with in the West, like Cupid. Cupid is mentioned here. Cupid, the god of Valentine's Day. Yes, we just said. So Cupid, Valentine's Day, god of love. I think Cupid is like a Greek god. We hear that name, Cupid. Okay, right. So, all right, Cupid, and then so a name for Cupid is Madan, and a name for Krishna is Madan Mohan, the attractor of Cupid. Like Cupid attracts everyone, right? We all get attracted, romantic desires, that sort of thing. And then Krishna is Madan Mohan. So he's supreme, but he's not supreme, because then there's Madan Mohan Mohini. So that's Srimati Radharani. She's the attractor of Cupid. And that's a name for Radharani, actually. All right. So this points to, so actually the Cupid sort of love that maybe we heard about, like growing up in Romeo and Juliet and that sort of thing. Yeah. So that's that would be. Actually, the technical term for that is more, because actually the term here is Kamadev. So Kama means lust. So there's a distinction here between lust and love. And so, yes, and so it's actually lust disguised as love. And we're going to say, what's that mean? We're going to get into that in the next half hour. It's actually lust. Then it can often look like a relationship made in heaven, made in heaven, lived in hell. Maybe some of us have experienced that. Nodding heads. Okay, so this isn't just like dry abstract philosophy. Okay. Very practically applied here. Yes. Okay. Right. So that's why like this is important distinctions to make. Like, is this actually love or is this lust? What does that mean? All right. So, okay. So as far as like actually love, that's actually spiritual. Material love, in a sense, is an oxymoron, contradiction in terms, because it's based on illusion. We just sang about Cupid in the previous song. We just sang about Cupid, Lord Brahma. Vinum kranantam aravinda dalaya taksham barhavatam samasitam buddha sundarangam kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobam govindamadi pusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primate of the Lord, the first progenitor, who is adept at playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, and head bedecked with peacock feather, whose figure beauty is tinged with the hue of dark blue rain clouds, and whose unique loveliness is charming millions of cupids. That's how it's translated, Kandarpa, another name, whose unique loveliness is charming millions of cupids. So, actually, it was a few weeks ago, Jivan Muktapu, you wrote me a letter. It was the don't go to Safetov letter. No, he did. He wrote a letter. Don't go to Safetov. Can you believe it? You can believe it. Yeah. No. So he wrote me a letter. Don't go to Safetov, and it was a literary allusion to a text by Srila Rupa Goswami, because the idea is don't go to Safetov if you're satisfied and liking and attached to a stagnant, comfortable life that's 90% dead, maybe 10% alive, and lame conversations that are empty in content but kind of safe. Don't rock the boat. If you like that stuff, don't go to Safetov. You made a point there. So that's actually a literary allusion to Srila Rupa Goswami, because Srila Rupa Goswami, he takes a strong stand. He says, do not practice Krishna consciousness. Do not practice Krishna consciousness. Don't come to Krishna consciousness. Don't do bhakti yoga. If you're attached to material love, an attachment to material society, friendship, love. And I can say, actually, and some of you have heard me share, in the summer of 1983, I was backpacking around Europe. At one point, I stopped at an ashram called Villa Vrindavan outside of Florence, Italy. And I actually read, I was there for about 2 weeks. I read Bhagavad Gita as it is, cover to cover. Completely ruined my life. My hopes, my dreams, my aspirations shattered to pieces. So now I'm dedicated to share it with you.
Hurt people.
Yeah. Taking out my unhealed wounds. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. So Krishna's supreme lovable object. So Krishna's supreme love. So once we get attached there, then everything else fades in comparison. Then everything else fades in comparison. Alola Chandra Kala Satbana Malyavam Siratnangadam Pranaya Kali Kala Dilasam Shamam Tribangala Litani Atam Prakasham Govindamadi Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor. Round whose neck swings a flower garland, beautified by the moon locket, with hands bedecked with beautiful jeweled ornaments, and the flute, who always revels in pastimes of love, and whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundar is eternally manifest. So again, if we're attached to like material society, friendship, and love, stay away from that whole Shyamasundar stuff. The graceful threefold bending form who's eternally manifest. So, so this is spiritual love. So Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is the substratum of all existence. Prabhupada will sometimes Prabhupada talks about. He says it's natural to love oneself. We can say, no, once we become a spiritual life, then we want to we don't want to be egotistical and love ourselves, self-esteem. No, Prabhupada said it's natural, natural to love ourselves. Natural to love ourselves. And he goes, it's natural to love our body. We all love our bodies, right? My body is the center of the universe. He goes, it's natural to love our body. Why? Because the soul's inside, right? That irreducible quanta of consciousness that is the self. The soul's inside. And we know, because like once the soul leaves, then body, okay, have some ceremony, but get rid of it quick, right? Throw it in the ocean, bury it in the ground, burn it. And so it's natural to love the body because the soul's inside. And it's natural to love the soul because the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. Because Krishna is the soul of the soul. Krishna is a name for the Supreme Person, Supreme Conscious Entity. So because the soul is, in a sense, the soul is part of the body of Krishna. The soul of the soul is Krishna. That's why it's natural. So of course, there is materially self-absorbed pseudo-love that just becomes like a self-absorbed sort of trip. It's natural. Like, yeah, we're parts and parcels of God. Right? As are all living entities, all material, all energies. Aham sarvasya prabhavamata sarvam prabhavate iti matvabhajanti buddha bhava samanvita. Krishna says, I'm the source of all energies, and one who gets this naturally serves me with love and devotion. So the Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sajikabhamai Shravanani Shudachate Karye Udai. That love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. That's why we were just reading before Japa this morning. Prabhupada's statement about Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the Happening album. He says, this Krishna consciousness, it's not an artificial imposition on the mind. This is the original energy, right? This like chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the original consciousness of the soul. That's why even if it might seem foreign according to our upbringing and whatever country we were brought up in, and says, well, it's so foreign, but it feels like coming home. But it feels like coming home. This is the original consciousness of the soul. And so, and it's awakened, right? This natural love of Krishna. This is spiritual love. And it's not about being a Scrooge and pessimistic about relationships in this realm. Well, actually, this philosophy is highly pessimistic about material life. I hear some pain behind that laughter. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's actually highly pessimistic about material life and hopes for fulfillment in material endeavors, including material love. So, yeah. It's party pooper, the whole thing, right? Wow. But it's highly optimistic about spiritual life. And spiritual life is not like, oh, it's like after I die, I go to heaven or something. No. So it's the quintessential Jivan Mukta verse. Yeah, so that we can experience Jivan Mukta, liberation, spiritual love, liberated from material illusion in this body. We don't need to wait, till this body dies. Again, technically speaking, this body dies. This body is already dead. That's a real downer statement. Heavenly, the whole thing's disintegrating here. Okay, so we're very optimistic about spiritual love, and so to the extent that the relationships in this world, whether family or spousal or parent, children, people we work with, people we play with, we put devotional service to Krishna in the center. Then we get to awaken. Then we get to awaken our love for each other. We're like, we're actually supporting each other. We're actually supporting each other to awaken to the real bliss, the unending bliss of the soul. And then just like, then there's loving appreciation for each other. Otherwise, in the name of love, it's business. It's business. And, you satisfy my senses. Senses can be senses of the gross body or senses of the subtle material body, like my desire for being adored, my desire for being special, my desire for adoration, profit, distinction, like that. And right, you said, and then when, so it's like a business exchange, and then when the exchange is no longer favorable, because that's the nature of the senses. It's the economic law of diminishing returns. Right? Spiritual love is ever increasing, ever increasing. Spiritual love with Krishna in the center, ever increasing. And that's what we really want. That's what will satisfy us. Basic analogy, like if we have a fish, we take the fish out of water. And let's say the fish has 4,000 square foot home, the mortgage paid off.
Whoa.
And the fish has an attractive spouse fish. And the fish has a prestigious position in a Fortune 500 company. And the fish had what? What will the fish do?
The fish has a puppy.
The fish has horses and puppies, yeah. Pets.
A unicorn. Happy fish.
The fish has, yes. Okay. So what Ladine is saying, oh, then the fish will be happy because it has a puppy. So I'm asserting no. I'm saying, I'm just bursting all the bubbles. Yeah. Bursting. Yeah, you were happy before you came here. No, so what the fish will do is the fish will flop and die.
Did you ever have a puppy?
And the fish will flop and die. Because the fish is not at home. Right? The home is in the water. The home is in the water. So it's a metaphor. So our water is eternity. Our water is eternity. And so any pleasures we seek, whether we get them or not, if they're not eternal, if that everlasting, enduring, timeless, we won't be satisfied. I mean, maybe we can put on a mask of like, I got it going, I got it together, but we won't be satisfied. And then so much of life is about like finding ways to run from that pain and the despair and the emptiness of the emptiness inside, right? Because we're not satisfied. Just like, to use the vehicle analogy, right? We're not the car, we're the driver of the car. And so we can take care of the car. We can make sure the tires have enough air and the fluids and the gas and get it washed and detailed.
Give it a puppy.
Give it a puppy. I'm not discouraging detailing, whatever that is, but still, we're making a philosophical point here. Yeah, but so then someone, it's like, look, I'm really happy. Look at this car. Someone say, yeah, it looks like you haven't like eaten in 3 days and you haven't taken a shower in a month. And so like you're taking care of the car, but what about the driver? What about the driver? This is a key point. So to the extent that we misidentify with the car, material body, not to neglect the car, then we're going to seek love, we're going to seek pleasure through just trying to gratify the externals, through gratifying the externals. So this is about, so if we want to begin to awaken to actual spiritual love, serving God with love and devotion and putting that at the center of all parts of our life. That's bhakti. That means like, it's like getting serious, following some process where we get increasing realization. I'm not the car. I'm the driver of the car. I'm that atomic unit of sentience that inhabits the body. And yes, yeah, it's described in Bhagavad Gita. Yehi sam sparsha jambagad dukkha yonai evite adyantavanta kote adyantavanta kote nateshu ramate Buddha. Thank you. So it's described that a wise person, truly spiritually, there's different types of intelligence: mathematical intelligence, emotional intelligence. Spiritual intelligence means real wisdom is like, I'm not going to try to seek my fulfillment in that which is temporary. I'm not going to be like a fish out of water. And that's it. That's what it comes down to. So really wise people, I'm gone. So sometimes we're like, spiritual life, I want to have fun. I want to have a good time. I don't want to do spiritual. So spiritual life, it's not about not having fun. It's about knowing where the fun really is, where the party really never ends. Even if we just look, let's say, all right, so for the past 3 hours, 45 minutes, right, starting at 5 a.m., what are we doing? We're like dancing and jumping and singing. And okay, so like, who else other than the bhakti yogis are doing that at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., right? So like, from all points of view. So, Bhagavad Gita. So we did start, as you indicated, Prabhupada. We started at very elevated states. Krishna, Shama Sundar, graceful threefold bending form, which is eternally manifest, and all that little Cupid. Krishna known as transcendental Cupid. Okay, and so it starts in the very grounded place. A verse, many of us know. Hinosmi itadehe kamanam yovadam jira tata dehantara praptir dirastatra namuyati.
That's where we went yesterday.
Yes?
Doing our reading. So that's supposed to be right.
Well, beautiful. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. So this is where it starts. It's to understand, okay, yes, that so a thought experiment we often do. If we imagine that we're looking at a photo of ourselves when we were just 5 years old. When we look at that photo, do we say, who is this person? Who is this stranger? No, we say, that's me. That's David when I was 5. So that's Eze, that's Cassidy, that's Casey. And we know from basic science, the physical has completely changed. We could say, well, the body grew. But that's actually not true. That's an illusion. The parts are completely changed. There's not one atom, not one molecule that was in the 5-year-old body that's there now. Still, there's some constant identity that I call David, you call Patrick, you call Cassidy. So that indicates that identity is something non-physical. It's like experiential proof, you might say. Still, being not self-realized, I'm still acting as if I am my body. So this process of bhakti yoga, this process of Krishna consciousness, this is all about realizing who we are as that eternal spirit soul. And then we get to be the fish in the water and realizing what are the activities of the spirit soul in the state of liberation from false material identification. And those activities, yes, that's this spiritual realm. So just like there's a whole realm related to this body. We got so many, there's this whole extensive, sophisticated realm related to material life, to material life, right, in our lives, internet. So much adventure and drama and romance, finances and exchanges, types of relationships. Okay, so it makes sense that for that spirit soul, so for the spirit soul, there must also be a whole world that involves all of that incompleteness because the material realm, this is the shadow form. This is the shadow form. Just like a shadow, a shadow is real as a shadow, but it has no substance. And the shadow is dependent on the real thing. Shadow is dependent on the substantial object. And so you can use the either the dream or the virtual reality analogy. Just like in virtual reality, I guess I've never done it, but one hooks themselves up to the whole virtual reality machine and then completely identifies with this character in the virtual reality. And then you got your goggles or whatever, and then all the senses are hooked up. You go, oh wow, my character is doing great. I don't know, it just defeated its enemies and won the war. It got a raise at work or whatever. Okay, wow. It's the same as a car analogy. It's just a little more sophisticated. And someone, wow, really, look, my character's got points. Yeah. So then someone can come along and go like, wow, like you look miserable. Yeah, like you're shriveling up and you haven't had a decent meal in a while. And it's like, and you're all pale, like you need to get out and see some trees and sun and sky. So look, there's so much trees and sun and sky here. Like that's just this machine. That's just this concocted reality. So that's it. Right? To the extent that I'm thinking I'm this David Wolf character, and I'm absorbed in the virtual, in that dream reality. So this Krishna consciousness is about waking up and supporting others to wake up to like real sun. No, there's real trees. You don't need to settle for that, for the shadow thing. It's about waking up to the real trees, and there's real sky, and there's real. So to take it on metaphor, actually, the real trees and the real sky and the real sun, it's beautiful because material nature is, but that's actually the shadow reality.
Wow.
That's actually, yeah, that's it. Right. So because these are all, because just like these bodies will die, the tree's body, the squirrel's body, but nature is so peaceful. No, it's not. No, we might go there and feel more peaceful than if we're like in the middle of the city, but nature is just like, it's like fierce competition. Jivo jivasi jivana. One living entity's food for another. It's fierce competition, even like on the plants. If there's a drop of water, like the roots of the different plants are competing. Who's going to get that drop of water? Again, sorry to burst all the bubble. That's what's happened. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. Okay, so right. So then it seems so we have an opportunity to wake up to trees and plants and relationships and adventure and music and dancing. That's not the law of diminishing returns. That's ever increasing. It's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, this is like the follow-up book to Bhagavad Gita. And Rishabhadev describes there, talking to his sons, headed by Bharat. Mayam deho deham bhajam vinoke kastankamam rati vidbhujami tapo divyam puchakina sarvam shudya disma brahmasakam tvanantam. So what he's saying there, he says, look, in the human form of life, don't settle for the types of gratifications and enjoyments that are available. The word he uses is to the stool eaters, the pigs, the dogs. Not an insult to pigs and dogs. Every species has its special gift and contribution. And the human form of life, is the special opportunity. Tapo divyam is the special opportunity is to do austerity. Okay. Now, austerity, yeah, like that might not sound like a great party word or something.
It doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, we're not like huge celebrations, and we get to do austerity. But actually, it's tapo divine austerity should yet to voluntarily, not like this have to, voluntary do austerity that moves us to experience ever deepening, ever expanding spiritual bliss. That's the life of the soul. Vidyavadu jivanam. That's the life of the soul. Kamasya nendriya pritya labu jivita yavata jivasya taka jigyasa narto yascha karma bi. So same principle. In the human form of life, or it's recommended by truly wise sages, to not make the goal of life gratification of the temporary senses. Human life, so to take care of the car, keep body and soul together in a healthy way, because the car serves us, not to neglect. Human life is meant to inquiry into the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. And absolute truth means realizing who I am, spirit, soul, and the nature of the soul is such Chidananda Vigraha, eternally full of bliss and cognizance, in ever expanding, loving relationship with Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead in the center. And so the principle is, in order to detach from falsely identifying with the body, to detach from attachment to that which is temporary, that which is just the law of diminishing and returns. In order to detach from that, it requires doing some austerity. So we can say again, I don't want to do austerity. I want a good time. Here's the thing. You're going to do austerity. You're doing austerity now. Everyone's doing austerity. Humans can't avoid it. I don't want to do spiritual life in austerity. I don't have a good time. I don't have time to talk right now. I need to go to the job that I hate. And then, that always seemed like a torture chamber. Yeah, excuse me, sorry, I don't want to offend, but never been to a gym. Clearly proud of it. Okay, so, all right, so we all have our pride about some things. All right, so, yeah, so we're like, well, I don't want to do austerity. I'm gonna get that master's degree. You're gonna do austerity. It means like, rather than like go to the bar every night or go to the beach every weekend, I'm going to study these books and study for this test. I don't want to do austerity. I want to become really good at tennis or golf. Well, it means you're going to practice. And I want to become really good at a musical instrument. It means you're going to practice, right? It's not like I'm just going to flowingly play the instrument. You're going to practice the chords and this and that. And yeah, I want to become really good at my business. Yeah, okay. I don't want to do austerity. I'm just going to work 18 hours a day, every day for 7 days for the first 5 years, but then I'll have it made. And sometimes it happens, usually not. But even if it happens, it means like, to achieve anything means we give up an immediate gratification for what we believe will be a longer term pleasure. And then, so the question is, where are we going to direct our propensity for austerity? And so this is actually the fun, joyful, intelligent way to direct our austerity, because this is a return as opposed to a material business. This is a return that's everlasting. Shushu kam kartama, directly experience, everlasting, joyfully performed. Narada Muni, Taktifasa Dharma, Bhatatam Swadharmata, Vijana Pakota, Patatoya di Yachukvava, Bhatamura Bushikim. Kovarta Arto Bhatatam Swadharmata. Narada Muni asks, he says, like, it's like even if we give ourselves to Krishna consciousness a little bit, whatever. I mean, the recommendation, give 100%, give 100%. That's like, be really intelligent. Make this the last time we're forced to take birth in a material body, subject to the whole virtual reality illusion, birth, death, old age, disease, pandemics, etc., etc. So he says, there's no loss, right? That's eternal benefit. Because even if someone in the material realm makes some progress, what's the gain really? Kovarta apto bhajatam. He asks rhetorically, what's the gain? Kovarta apta bhajatam swadharmata. What's the gain? Because it's like castles in the sand. It's all going to be destroyed today, tomorrow, trillion years. Whatever it is. Time of death. Okay. So, we can talk about austerity. At the same time, if you look at it, basically what we're doing is singing, dancing, and feasting. It's rough, but someone has to do it. But that's the basic program, singing, and then to manage things so that we can increase the singing, dancing, and feasting. And then the fish and water metaphor. See, then we're doing what the liberated soul does eternally. Then we're doing what the liberated soul does eternally. Serve Krishna in joy, singing, dancing, feasting. Serve Krishna in joy with love and devotion. So we're going to be, just like we're going to do austerity, we're going to be attached. Sometimes just don't be attached. Just don't be attached. I say that a lot. Personal growth, don't be attached. Right? Go there all the time. Here's the news. We're going to be attached because the nature of the soul is to be attached. Okay. So our choice is, are we going to be attached? We're going to be attached to the shadow of virtual reality. We're going to be attached to devotional service, to the water rather than the land, to use the fish. We can be attached to which is eternal, and then we're never disappointed. Then we don't need to do all sorts of survival coping strategies to run from the emptiness. So we can be attached. We're going to be attached to sound vibration. We're going to be attached to relationships. So we're going to increase our attachment to material sound vibration, material relationships, or to spiritual. We're attached to spiritual, then the soul is blissful. Otherwise, it's always that carrot on the stick. Okay, so this process, there's some regulations, some rules of the road to progress in this process. The main, like when Prabhupada came in the first center, Second Avenue, even before the center was established, is the basic process. Yeah, he sat under a tree and he chanted. He chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. That's a basic process to become attached to. Everything follows from there. Everything follows from there. It's a basic thing. Brother, in later years, Prabhupada said he thought maybe some people will chant with him. He said, I didn't think anyone would follow the regulative principles. He was shocked. But then, so then some came and chanted, and then there's like, wow, like Vishaya Nivartate, Niraharasideam, Rasavardam, Sopisa, Pram, Jisha Nivartate. That's the higher taste verse. A general psychological principle. Even like in a few weeks, we're going to start part 2 of PPTC. Yeah. So you're in that group. And today we close part 1. So a general principle, and we'll get into this in part 2, is like to really change a habit from something toxic to something healthy. Yeah, we need something healthy. We need a higher taste. We need a higher taste. We need a higher taste to give up something lower. Krishna encourages us control the lower self with the higher self by spiritual intelligence. And that becomes easier and easier as we get the higher taste. And Prabhupada would say, they would come to Prabhupada like, this chanting Hare Krishna, it's the highest taste we've ever experienced. We want more of it. So he goes, okay, all right. So to accelerate on this path, here's some principles you can follow if you choose. Basic things like, okay, like if we want a peaceful environment to cultivate these subtle realizations, it's not going to help if we're eating the results of gross violence. Like if the so-called food we eat comes from an animal who died in screaming agony. And then we can talk about, all I want is peace in the world. It doesn't go together. We're not even going to have peace in ourselves. Like that. So a non-violent diet, there's a whole science of that called prasadam, like that.
You are what you eat.
We are what you eat, yeah. Basic principles, just like, so I'm already bewildered in layers and layers of illusion. So I know how to come out of illusion. I'll smoke a joint. That should work, right? So it's like, no, like we're already bewildered. What's that?
I was wondering too.
What is this joint?
What is this joint? Okay. 1970s. 1970s. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, on my own, I don't know what a joint is, but because of Super Soul Connection, one who knows Krishna is the knower of everything. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, like if we really want to progress on the path, stay away from things that intoxicate us. We're already intoxicated.
Just to be.
Yeah, well, depends how serious we are about the process. So, so Prabhupada would often say, like, you see, point to his students, and they're so blissful. And when Prabhupada came to the West, the first, in Second Avenue, the first pamphlet they printed was entitled "Stay High Forever." Everyone's looking for a high, etc. Right? So, and that was the age of tune in, turn on, and drop out, and that whole thing was the hallucinogens and heroin and drugs. Better living through chemistry. Who knows that one? Better living through chemistry. Good. So then,
It's not that it's better now.
Yeah. So even they would come to Prabhupada's center, and those they would be tripping on the drugs, and then they would just kind of crash and wake up the next morning to Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So it's like, that's not gonna get high. So, okay, so yeah, this high, that's really great high. Okay. Where's it gonna be 12 hours from now? Yeah, where's that beer gonna take you? Okay, so this is truly a stay high forever program, and it's the most grounded high because it's facing reality. It's not based on the illusion that I'm the body. It's based on the reality that this body is a vehicle, and I'm a spirit soul, I'm a servant of God. It's seeing reality, and it's cultivating a truly natural high. So I'll read the verse one more time. Tachakutati patirjanam prajunaste sukhamanga vira yamukmini bhagavato bile rajivi pram smarmadiswa. O Uddhava, please tell me how is Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life. Rukmini bore him as her son from Lord Krishna by the grace of Brahmins whom she pleased. There are very intriguing transcendental stories around all these personalities. We didn't get to that this class, but we got to some philosophy underlying it. I welcome at this time any comments or questions. I see something. Yes, Jim Wood wrote, I love the shadow analogy. Thank you, Jim. Any questions or comments? Shama Priya.
Despite all the bubbles being burst. And I got stuck on one bit where you said, like, okay, going out in nature.
Yeah.
And it's peaceful, but it's not necessarily peaceful because of all this stuff
Yeah.
going on. And I get that. I get there's disturbances and everything.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that felt really like just brushing it all off with one.
Yeah.
So I just wanted, because like there is actually a lot of understanding how the trees cooperate with the roots.
True interdependence.
There is
True interdependence.
We can learn a lot from that cooperation
Yeah.
between nature and how it works with each other. So I just felt a little bit of that.
Some pushback on that
one.
one.
Pushback, and that we just brushed it all off on one thing. So I just wanted to name that. But there is a spirit in nature, and it's not all disturbance and competition and misery. And so maybe when we do go out in nature and connect in, we're connecting in with the spirit, and there is something bigger.
There is. Thanks for that. Looks like otherwise I would have been seeing this like narrow-minded. Good. So thanks for counterbalancing what I presented with very important truth and perspective. And so we talk about the three modes of nature, right? And so like the city or the town, it's more Rajas. The most sattvic place is nature, and trees like that. And that's why even like sages or meditators, monks and nuns go out to nature. It is peaceful. So it's all true. So let's look at it. At the same time, you got spirit souls, in a sense, who are under a lot of ignorance, thinking they're trees and thinking they're squirrels and things like that. So what's happening there? Let's analyze it. So in nature, everything, all the living entities are following the divine plan. That's why it's peaceful. Whereas in human society, for the most part, that's not the case, right? That's not the case. So in nature, everyone, right, like, okay, just like Prabhupada gives an example of, let's say, a bag of grain falls. So a bird will come, take the grain that it needs, fills up, and go. Just try and plan. Whereas humans are like, oh, I'll take more, and then I can sell this for this profit, and then maybe someone else who's actually hungry doesn't even get any grain because of my greed, and I like that. So human society, it's for the most part, human society can. It's actually ideally meant to bring us to higher nature, higher spiritual nature, but for the most part, it's violating the divine plan. And so in nature, everything's following the divine plan. Doesn't mean that all living entities are pure devotees, but everyone's following the divine plan. It's really peaceful. So it's like, oh, let's chant in nature, let's do our meditation in nature. So that's such an important point. And related to that, in this book, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, it's like huge tracks of the book are all about realizing self and realizing God in nature. Krishna says, Asoham apsakonte prabhasmi sasisuryayo pranavasar vedeshu shabdake purusham vishu. Says, I'm the taste of water. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. I'm the fragrance of the earth. I'm the sound in ether. So just like supporting us to realize God in nature, realize our place in nature. So yeah, that's such a vital aspect. Such a vital aspect. And I'm saying it is more goodness than practically any human society will find in nature. And then the point I made was the primary was around to not be sentimental or idealistic, right? Because there's lots of, but that's a thing. Like, okay, if a tiger viciously attacks a deer and rips it to shreds, it's fully aligned with the divine plan. Now, if I go out to the supermarket and buy beef or chicken, well, that's not the divine plan. That's bringing us down. So for humans, yeah, right. So we have, so we have our special opportunity is to realize our higher nature. So thanks for that, Chamapriya.
It's Krishna's nature. Because everything is aligned, like you said, like we have an opportunity in nature to get God realization.
Yeah.
Because it's not interfered by human being. And also in nature, the living entity are put in such a straitjacket that there is no space for them to sin. So it's sinless. Yeah. Like beside a human being. And so there is no space to go against the rules, the material nature of there is no sin possible. So naturally in that environment, like things are really, really aligned, and the sages, when they go there, they have those realizations. And there's so many beautiful description of nature in the Bhagavatam. So many, like the place where Kardama Muni is Kushum Salva.
Manasa Sarovar.
Manasa Salva. so beautifully described with the fruits, the trees full of fruits and the flower all fragrant and the water being pure water. Yeah. And almost as if Krishna's nature is given to the sages. Because the sages, because they are connected with super soul, even if they are in a very violent forest, they are not attacked. They can sit in the middle of the forest like Dhruva Maharaj, and the tiger didn't eat him. Even so, he was just 5 years old.
Thanks for that, Malini. Yeah, that because your comment takes it like to a more subtle understanding of the philosophy of what's going on here. The spirit souls in the bodies of a blade of grass or the tree or the plants or the tiger or the lions. Basically, those are spirit souls who, when they were in the human form, they violated nature so badly that they sort of sent the message to the universe, like, I don't deserve a human form. And so like the whole material existence is called Durga, Srishti, Stiti, Pralaya, Sadanas. That Durga means prison house. So human form, it's sort of like minimum security. So they got into those other species, it's like maximum security.
Mm.
And so, as you said, like they're practically in a straitjacket in a small cell. They can't really,
They cannot do harm.
They can't do harm. Yeah, so they're just following
And yeah, and that's the beauty of Krishna. Like the way we do things is so ugly.
yeah.
Like the prison, they're ugly places. The most ugly places are prisons,
Mm.
like way and all that. Krishna, he makes the highest level of like his prison a place for sages to meditate, and it's beautiful and colorful and bountiful. So it's like we can appreciate Krishna even more. Seeing that how he can perform, two completely distinctive activity and do it in a way that's so complementary and amazingly fascinating and attractive.
Thanks for that. Thank you, Malini. See, Kim, then Ladini. Kim.
Hi, Krishna. I wanted to kind of go along with, I don't remember how to pronounce her name, Samyapriya or Shamapriya.
Yeah. You're on mute, Kim.
How do you say it?
Shamapriya.
Oh, Shamapriya. Okay. I had some pushback, and I wasn't going to say it because didn't want to be a downer, but I did have some pushback. I have a hard time when material relationships are shown so negatively. It doesn't make sense to me on so many levels. Like, although many material relationships are contractual, and to go back to that old saying, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. Yeah. There's so many relationships that don't appear to me to be that way. I mean, to say, oh, well, yes, a relationship, a friendship, a love relationship is, you're getting something from it. Yes, you are. You're not going to stay in a relationship where someone is hurting you or, making you feel bad about yourself or being cruel in some way. Of course, you would not stay in that relationship, but that would mimic spiritual relationships too. I mean, Krishna basically wants that same kind of relationship. He wants us to serve him and love him. And so there is a contractual relationship there. And so in the same way, I feel like a lot of relationships here can be very, I don't want to use the word spiritual, but mimic that, but yet still in a good way. And I feel like a lot of people who are maybe drawn to Krishna consciousness or a spiritual path or even, any spiritual path are sattvic and good. and can have very good relationships that aren't, even though there's some contractuality there, like some support needs to be there, some kindness, something, because you'd be a fool if you would stay in a relationship where there wasn't that. It doesn't make it not good. And I have a hard time with that. And I wouldn't mind you speaking more on that.
Kim, thanks for sharing. So just like Shamapriya pushed back on my nature comments, you're pushing back on my relationship comments. Yeah, so I mean, what you're saying, as I understand, is consistent with Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And yeah, you kept using the word good. So, right, so like there's, you know, a relationship can be made in heaven and lived in heaven. And heaven indicates sattva, and it's a continuum. And so again, I made my nature comment. It's violence like that to make a point. And similarly with relationships, because we probably all experienced, like the, once the pain of relationships like that. And so so it could be lived in a sattvic place, and then it's like there's just a high compatibility. And sattva is closer to the life of spirit. Sattva is closer compared to if it's rajas, and it might be like gratifying at first, then grief like that. And if it's tamas, then it's just like we're really just doing violence to each other, and like we can't even control it, But to the extent that we cultivate sattva, and sattva is on the continuum towards service to God. And so there could just be a natural sattvic compatibility, and just like, hear about relationships amongst the demigods. So there can be heavenly type relationships here too on this realm. So definitely, yes, there's a continuum, and sometimes we'll emphasize different parts of the continuum to illustrate different philosophical principles. Yeah. So
Well, also, can you address? Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I was going to like a lot of what we endeavor to do in Sattva Tov is, like sattvic communication. Right? Every relationship has its problems and difficulties and tensions, and the nature of those difficulties change year after year like that. But it's pretty constant. But then, to the extent that we have really good listening skills and the capacity to communicate effectively in a way that's really intended to be win-win. It's like, we focus on sattvic relation with emotion, sattvic relation with listening and communicating, creating a space, bhuyam akiti prichati, a space that's conducive for all expression to be permissible, not shutting each other down with roadblocks. Then the qualities of the quality of the relationship is sweeter and sweeter.
And can you speak a little bit more on the contractual nature of it? To say that there's no contractual, I believe, I don't know, from my understanding, there is a contractual nature even to spiritual relationships, even to our relationship with Krishna. So you can't take contractualness out of relationships 100%, even if you're trying to have a good sattvic spiritual relationship in this material world. There's going to be some contractualness. Is that true?
Thanks for your expression there. Yeah. So it's true to a point, and so we're encouraged to let's make a contract with Krishna, right? So because we are one happiness in relationship. And this bhakti means in liberation, there's relationship. So we all want happiness. Prabhupada would often say, so really live selfishly and go for that happiness that will be the deepest, and it will be enduring and eternal. So like the real selfishness is engage in Krishna consciousness and bhakti yoga, devotional service. That's the real self-interest. That's the real self-interest. So yeah, so it's just, in a sense, it's about becoming more and more intelligent in realizing what is my self-interest, right? And my real self-interest is to satisfy me as the driver of the car. What's the best way to do that? But yeah, I really want the bliss of the soul. The best way to do that is engage in devotional relationship with Krishna. Okay, I got this game figured out. So let's go for the real self-interest at a very, very high level, which I don't know anything about, but we hear about it sometimes. A very high level. The final verse of Shik Shastaka, Ashlisha Babadavatam Pinashtamam Madarshnam Mamartam Kurutibaya Tat Tava Vididatalam Tomat Pranana Tastu Sevinapara. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he's Krishna, playing the role of a devotee of Krishna at the level of Srimati Radharani. Then he's saying, like, yeah, make me brokenhearted. Don't be present before me. You just that's like a devotee on the platform with no self-interest. I'm going to serve you unconditionally, no matter what. We don't want to imitate that, but something we can aspire for. It comes naturally. We don't need to, artificially strive for it. But at some level, kind of like, okay, I just want to be happy. Okay, now the relationship here and there, and then so there's like some gratification, but then it becomes okay. Now I'm getting the best way to be happy. My self-interest is to offer flowers on the altar to Prabhupada. Okay, I want to do it. I want to do it to be happy. And if I don't get the happiness, okay, then I want something from it. Okay, so we're encouraged to do that from wherever we're at. From wherever we're at. I have Ladini, Gajendra, and Malini. Yes.
Just a short comment on what it seems also that what we are saying is that where do we put our endeavor, where we put our energy, where we put our time and endeavor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, like let's say if I put my endeavor in making money.
Yeah.
If I'm making money with in mind service to Krishna,
yeah,
then that's become eternal
yes.
and not temporary. So similarly in relationship, it is contractual, and what are we investing in relationship? Yeah. And I think what you were highlighting is that if we invest in everything, including relationship, to satisfy our senses and mind and ego, then we are going to suffer.
Yeah.
We are going to suffer. There is no escape from that.
Yeah.
And if we invest in relationship towards what's eternal, yeah, with each other, then we are going to enhance each other, yeah, and then it becomes satisfying and fulfilling. But I think like it's the yeah, distinction is that where do we invest and for what we invest in relationship? Yeah. Because we are investing. We're investing. Yeah. And as long as we invest, to get pleasure from the senses of the mind, then frustration is going to come. Just the way it is. It's like
the law of gravity. If we drop something, it will fall.
Yes. Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks for that, Mom.
Yeah, I was just wanting very quickly to the nature part. Like nature is peaceful. So how I see it is like that someone has human body doesn't mean that he has a human consciousness. Mm. It's not like as soon as I degrade my consciousness to a dog consciousness, I die and get the dog body. Right. There is some time. And I think most people have much less consciousness, yeah, than a tree. Yeah. So then nature is also peaceful because the consciousness might be much higher than, we like, yeah, to think humans are at the top of your, right, evolution. But that I have a human body doesn't mean that my next destination as my consciousness is now is somewhere I would be happy to be a dog. It would be pretty elevated. That's my add to that.
Thanks for that, Ladini. Yeah, so in the human form, Right, all spirit souls are equal. Vidyadinaya Samphane, Brahmane Gadi Hastini, Shuniche Pakecha Pandita Samadashina.
My favorite one.
A realized sage sees
It's a
with,
dog.
sees with equal vision. Yes, it's the same quality of soul in the body of a dog, an elephant, a cow, a dog eater, a Brahmin, a learned person. But in the human form, one has the potential to have higher consciousness than any other species. Practically speaking, we might say most humans have consciousness that's lower than a dog. So that's the factual, lower than a tree. So that
It's
is,
better to be with dogs in that
yes,
situation.
right.
It's so much
Yeah.
better to be with
Yeah.
dogs than with human being with
Yeah.
consciousness lower than a dog.
I do a japa walk and just on a nearby street on the outside on the lawn, there's a sign that says, dogs welcome, humans tolerated.
We have some realization about
Yeah.
So how is it possible then? Because my understanding is in order to have a human body, you need to have a consciousness that allows for that. So how can it be that, let's say what you said, most human beings will have a consciousness that's lower than a dog? Then how did we land the human body?
We barely made it.
Okay, but even barely making it, like that would mean, okay, you barely made it to human consciousness. So then how are we like, then to say that everybody or most people will have a consciousness lower than it, like, how do you even get a human body if you're at below a dog level?
Well, there's a few ways. Some humans, maybe they're demigods who are kind of on their way down, or demigods who are choosing to be humans to participate in the Sankirtan movement, or it could be a spirit soul that's worked its way up through 8,400,000 species or 8 million species, and then from the body of a cow or a lion or a monkey. Sometimes like lions, humans who are relatively more passionate. Lions, humans relatively more ignorant, came from monkeys. Relatively more sattvic came from cows. And so the human enters, and then right, and so there's that expanded consciousness. There's an expanded consciousness compared to the other species. And then what are we doing with this consciousness? What are we doing with this consciousness? And then, based on what we associate with, then we might cover the diamond so much and violate the laws of God so much that then we become lower than the other species.
Like within one lifetime, we have that kind of very.
And then we basically say, okay, I didn't really deserve this human form, because in the human form we get to expand our consciousness even more towards realizing who we are is not the body. But if we just use it for degraded subhuman activities, and then within one lifetime, then we can become low. Then we're violating God's nature, and that's then we're lower than the other species, depending, because we have the expanded range of choice in the human form. So it depends what we do with that choice. I saw Gajendra, you had your hand up.
I did, but it's getting late. I was going to comment on a few things, one of them being Kim, but I think she's indicating she doesn't want to go further today. But she had said something in chat, and I was sort of wanting to go into it more. The other thing, there's two things I guess I can mention on my own quickly. One is just a brief, just personal story. Back on Halloween in 2007, I went out on Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan, with some devotees downtown. And at the end of it, at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I found myself in conversation with some kind of, grad student deeply into like computer sciences and stuff like that. And I was talking about, just thinking that as an introduction to spirituality, just bringing up about society and the importance of the natural world, protecting nature, the environment. I thought that would sort of be a given. And he just sort of like wiped it away. Like, no, we're going to actually create a better reality than the natural world, almost Matrix-like. And to this day, I still can't. I mean, I hear it, but I'm just like, wow. The other thing is, the beginning of class, you were just sort of alluding to, or not alluding, but some things, were said about like, like stay away from Krishna because your life will be ruined. And, so I just wanted to say something, kind to you, like you were getting pushback from Kim and pushback from Samapriya. And I just wanted to express my appreciation and congratulate you with your work in Sattvato, because I know you've ruined quite a few lives.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Gendra. I feel you as a real friend at this moment. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Melanie.
I just want to thank you again. I want to come back to your question is in my mind, and I was thinking like like the 8,400,000 species of life, they are there to kind of purging. Like we are in a human life, and only in a human form can we accumulate karma. We accumulate karma only in a human form, and so we accumulate pious and pious credit like that. And then those 8,400,000 species, they are there to clear up. It's a purging time. So it's like I can get on a shower and get clean, but then I can roll in the mud right after I get clean, and then put myself in the same place I was before my last, human birth, and then go back down right away. And often, Srila Prabhupada said, like Nityabhada, that we are eternally conditioned. So we have been to so many human lifetimes. It's not the first time we are human, but every time, instead of staying on the shower and saying, wow, I'm going to continue to clean myself, my free will is uncovered from, in the animal species, the free will is so covered that they are almost inexistent. So the free will is uncovered, that's human birth, that's a difference, really, the free will is there. And then we can choose what we do with that, because with that free will, we can decide to act in a way that's lower than animals, like killing babies and eating meats and doing all kinds of things that are against material nature, and then living a life that's lower than maybe the last species in which we were in the animal kingdom, and then go back to the cycle of 8,400,000 species of life.
Thank you, but isn't it described usually that it's like a gradual transition, like many jivas will start from Brahman, like work their way down.
It's downward first.
Yeah. But in a way, what I'm hearing you say is like, yeah, you make it a human and then you can go like all the way back to the bottom.
Well, it's downward first, but after when low, you can go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down.
But I'm speaking about like the gradual, like it's like at least how I've heard it is that it's generally described as like a gradual process.
It's a gradual process of degradation.
Yeah,
and then degradation, and then you come to human form of life. And then in the human form of life, that's where you can really degrade yourself, and you go to
you can do quick process.
And then your lower species, and you can cycle again and again. That's why we are Nityabhada, eternally conditioned. Because there is a moment, like whatever, like when the jiva separate from Krishna because of the desire to enjoy and to love the material nature, And then from that moment on, yes, it's only downward. But then now there is a moment where you cannot go downward anymore and you go back up. But then even when you go back up, you come to the human species. And then there you have choices and you can go down again or up. Yeah. And then you can cycle again and again and again in 8,400,000 species of life forever.
It's
And
a terrible trap that Krishna created.
that we created. Krishna
I mean,
created it.
wasn't this world set up by Krishna? Like,
No,
isn't
no.
this all him?
No, it's all us.
It's
all
not
us.
us. That's nothing to
So
do
what
with
is Brahma's
Krishna.
role then? The guy who created Earth.
Brahma is just fulfilling our desire.
Just like the prison, it's just, ideally, the government, they don't want to create a prison. But some citizens choose, like, I'm going to break the law. I'm going to smash windows. I'm going to rape and murder. And so ideally, because the government created the prison, it's actually mercy. It's like, okay, to protect people, we have a prison. And ideally, the purpose of the prison is not punishment. It's rehabilitation. Ideally, the government wants, we really want you to just choose to be law-abiding citizens. Then you're free, then you can start a business, you can go on vacation to the mountains. But when you had that freedom to go on vacation to the mountains and this and that, you harmed other people, you violated. So we have this prison for your rehabilitation. It's the mercy of the government. Only because certain inhabitants of the state choose to violate the laws. And just to extend that a bit, related to what you shared, Malini, let's take it like, so in the human form, there's full range of choice. Nothing needs to be gradual. Full range of choice for complete degradation. That shouldn't be a mystery. and full opportunity for complete elevation. So like back to Godhead in this lifetime. And that's what Prabhupada wants for us. Back to Goloka Vrindavan, even in this body, but certainly when we leave it. So there's nothing needs to be gradual, depending on the choices we make. So just like within the prison, you can't do too much harm because you're in the cell and you can do too much harm. And then within the prison, there's minimum security, maximum security. But okay, then those who are out of the prison, again, so you got full freedom. Now, someone who's really misusing, that's like represents the human form. So you got full freedom. Now, someone who's out of the prison, and it relates to Aldini's comment previously earlier. So someone's out of the prison, and let's say they're violating the laws, and they're stealing and they're damaging property and injuring people and committing murder. Right. So then, okay, so then they are in a lower consciousness than the prisoners in the cell, right? They're doing more harm to the state, the prisoner cell, because they're like the lower species. But then at some point, you've developed this criminal consciousness. You're going to go into the cell too, but they're doing more. So they're lower than the dogs. They're lower than the trees.
And that makes sense because that person with the freedom, they don't have to like gradually commit bigger and bigger crimes.
Yeah.
They could go all the way to like the most extreme.
So some people choose to go to the heavenly planet. We didn't speak about that, but that's it.
It's like we are like speaking like what they deserve and like punishment and like that. But it's also like what we desire.
Yeah.
And like when I like really like look at it, the species that I get is like so much like desire based. Like if I have the human body, I don't want to do austerities. I want to enjoy my senses. Why don't I get a body that like is capable to enjoy senses more?
Yeah, like a roaches.
Yeah.
There's so many of them.
So I think like if you like narrow it down, even like the action of mother, like somewhere in it is like, I want to be in the prison. Like, and so for example, in my life, I struggled to have children. So I think, okay, so maybe in my past life, I had abortions. Mm-hmm. So the clear message in that is, I don't want to have children. If I ever get pregnant, I would rather kill them than to take care for them. And then I get the body that's like not able to have children, so I can have as much sex as I want to.
Your desire fulfilled.
So I think the desire part is not like, oh, you are punished. It's like,
Right.
that's what you desired. And now I'm like, well, but I didn't want this either, you know. So I think next life I will have sex like when I'm 13 and I will get pregnant immediately like this. and I'm like, that's not what I desired.
I appreciate your vision of past, present, and future. Yeah, I appreciate your personal sharing and the philosophical point, you know, getting more fully into because it's not about punishment, it's about desire. Just examples we give, like let's say someone's desiring, say someone who does go to the gym and their goal is to be muscle and like that, and what's it called, buff, and six pack. Yeah.
Oh, no, really?
I know, yeah, right, like that. Okay, and then it's strong like that. So then, in one sense, so like, and again, we want to keep fit and all because it's a temple of God and all of that. But okay, but in one sense, the human body is not so good because let's say even the most buffest physical fitness, weightlifter, bodybuilding person. Let's say you put him in a cage with a healthy adult gorilla
Who doesn't go to the gym.
who never went to the gym.
And eats lots of bananas.
Right, yeah, right. Okay, yeah, okay. Let's say, yeah, a healthy gorilla in an angry mood. Okay, so Mr. Bodybuilder, Mr. Universe, he's crushed in like 5 seconds. But like that's the goal. So maybe next life, that's what you want. Okay, you get a rhinoceros body. They got muscle mass, right? They got muscle. You get the gorilla body. Okay, like that. So it's like that's what you desire. So we got species that are better at it than human. Human species. The special gift is we get to cultivate self-realization. We get to cultivate realization of the absolute. Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the like in the weightlifting community who refer to very built men as gorillas
Okay. Yeah.
in a positive way.
Yeah, in a positive way. Right. So
Here we go.
yeah, I think
That's what
we're
you want, maybe.
we're-
Maybe soon we will be more gorilla.
they're creating their future there, even with their language. Thanks for that. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hari Hari Bol.